say that actually sorting out domestic dogs from coyotes and wolves is like one of the hardest things that I do on a regular basis with wildlife tracking. And that's like an application that gets used regularly, right? People want to know if they found wolves, if it's, you know, if it's a predation event, like what's been feeding on it. And, as I mentioned, there's the basic strategy I take with wild dogs, wild canines and domestic dogs is I will look for features that should be there for a wild canine and then try to rule it out, basically find things that don't fit. And the easiest thing is often the size and overall shape. So the first set of dog tracks we had, it was like, those are pretty relatively straightforward, right? Because we walked through it, the shape was just wrong. But this is your hind foot, right? So we're going to compare that to this. And you know, just the overall size is, you know, pretty good. It's not too far off. It's maybe bigger than average. These I did life size average for animals in the region, just so you know. And it's got two toes, and two, you know, the orientation of these toes to each other works pretty well. This shape right here is a little wider than it is long, so this is usually pretty square in here for a coyote, and this is presenting as slightly wider than I'd expect, but you know, I mean, give or take. And then the palm pad looks pretty good. One thing I'm noticing is that it's a little flatter across the back here than what I might expect to see in a coyote, but that could be a function of the substrate. And I can't see, I couldn't really, these claws, that could work. I can't really say much about that. There's nothing in this track aside from this. It looks slightly wider compared to the length than I might expect. And then in the front foot, now I see a few things that kind of stand out to me. One is that it's quite a bit wider than what I might expect, and it could be from the toes splaying a bit, but it just looks, and I can't see the heel, so I don't know if that would make this track appear round or what. But if you saw if we had a front foot, that's totally clear. I might look to see if it's round. One thing that really stands out though is if you look at the shape of these toes, these middle toes are pretty oval. The outer toes maybe pointed a little bit, but the insides, it's pretty like oval down here. And if you look at this toe right here, it looks like a giant kidney bean. You see that? Where it's got this odd angle right in here. And then you see how the claw on this kind of comes right out of the toe and kind of curves around? That would be really unusual to see in a coyote's foot. Their toes look like this and their claws come out straight. So to have like a twisted toe with like a curved claw in it is something that would be really unusual for a coyote. And this is just one track. I want to compare it with a bunch of them just to make sure that's a consistent feature. But I can just show you just by way of an illustration. If you look at, you see this shape right here, this kind of kidney bean, and the blunter claw kind of curves into it. That's what I'm seeing right here. And not all dogs have that, but it's not an uncommon thing to find in a dog. So for me, between this being just slightly off in its dimensions and then having these outer toes just look funny for a coyote, that's enough for me to say this is not a coyote. This is a domestic dog. So, but those are really subtle. Those are subtle because this general size works, the location works. If we look over here, we can just double check my work. But
show the math.
if you look at these claws, the way they connect to the toe and the bluntness to them, just that doesn't work for a coyote. So, yep, that's what I call it.
We are close to a parking area.